You guys would like a water or anything to drink? Thank you so much for coming down, Rosie. I know this must be kind of strange, but I think kids and grandkids and great-grandkids 100 years from now will really appreciate that you did this. There's not a whole lot of you Schmidt cousins left from that generation.
No, there isn't.
Let's see, there's you and I guess Mike's 2 kids.
Yes, and Uncle Heine has a couple left.
Yep, Jim and Keith, and I think Marlene.
Marlene.
Yeah, those 3.
Let's see, is there anybody else?
We lost all the Krugs within the past few
Yeah,
years.
and all the Schaefers.
All the Schaefers within the past few years, even their spouses. Oh my goodness.
And we're kind of thinned out.
Yeah. And of course, well, we got Marge.
Yeah, we got Marge
representing the William branch.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I guess Rosie, you and I have, had conversations about what you remember of your uncles and aunts and your cousins and grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to get as much of that down in writing as I could, but I was hoping I could get some of that on video too, so that we can put together a film documentary about our Schmidt family history.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe put it on DVDs, put it on YouTube for everybody to see. So today, what I was kind of wondering about was your memories of your grandma and grandpa Schmidt. And I guess I would just start out with, what do you remember about what your grandma and grandpa Schmidt looked like?
I can remember them very plainly. In fact, the grandchildren, or the sons, look a lot like Uncle Ed, and them all look like their dad. And Grandma was a little short lady with long hair, and she would either braid it or put it in a bun, and us kids would comb it for her because it hung down her back. I remember her in the kitchen all the time, baking and cooking. She had a cupboard that was just full of goodies all the time. So I was fortunate. I spent quite a bit of time there because they only lived a mile out of town. I'd ride the school bus out, and then Mom and Dad would come and get me later if they could. If they didn't, I'd stay all night.
So you would sometimes spend the night with your grandma and grandpa Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about spending the night with them?
About the what?
About when you would spend the night with grandma and grandpa?
Well, after school, on Fridays usually. And let's see. Sometimes Mom and Dad would come out and get me, but I remember the house and how it was. There was a sink in the corner with a cistern pump there, and then the stove was over on the other side, and Grandpa Schmidt had his own coffee pot that he sat on there, and it was just his.
Remember you told me a story once about how he would put a little coffee grounds in and more coffee grounds.
Yeah, he did that. He would just add a little bit of both, and so his coffee was always there.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about what the layout of the Schmidt farm was like?
Yes, I can remember that very plain. Yeah, there was the house as you drove in the house, and then off the way was the chicken house, and then the barn, and then a corn crib. And then at the end of the corn crib was a big watering tank for the cattle. I almost drowned in that once.
You almost drowned in the watering tank?
Well, a bunch of us grandkids were there, and they always had the windmill going and the pipe coming down, and we would reach up there and drink out of the pipe. Well, somebody bumped me, and I toppled in, and I could hear the kids screaming, and my mom come running from the house and fished me out, and I was already throwing up and turning blue.
Wow. Wow. How did your grandma and grandpa react to that?
I don't know that Grandpa, I don't think Grandpa is alive anymore, but Grandma, yeah. Well, she was sure glad they got me out.
Gosh, yeah. She must have been pretty upset.
Yes, Mom was too.
Wow. What kinds of personalities did your grandma and grandpa have?
Grandma had a real quiet personality, but Grandpa was more stern. He was more strict.
Kind of an old, gruff German farmer.
Yes, he was.
What are some of your favorite memories of your Grandpa Schmidt?
I don't really know. I didn't know him too long. I was about 5 when he passed away. I remember him going to the barn and doing chores and bringing in milk. But
now, was it you, or maybe it was your cousin Lois Krug, who had told me that one of them remembers riding along with Grandpa Schmidt on the wagon when he would go into town?
I never did that.
Oh, maybe that was Lois that did that one.
Probably.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How about some of your favorite memories of your Grandma Schmidt?
Oh, I have a lot of them. She was a real neat grandma, and she baked and cooked, and they always would butcher, and she'd have summer sausage there. You never left her place hungry. And it was always in that little hutch, as they called them back then. The pies and cakes, cookies. A lot of it was made with cream because that's what they had.
They would make their own homemade cream?
Yeah, they separated. They would milk and then separate the cream, and then they'd have that. And a lot of it needed sour cream. Well, in those days, you had a lot of sour cream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we were putting together that Schmidt Family Cookbook this past spring and summer, we heard from a lot of folks that there was kind of a Schmidt family sausage recipe. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was partially a Schmidt recipe, partially a Lindemann recipe. Do you have a copy of that cookbook? Did you ever get a hold of one of those?
No.
Oh, okay. I'll have to get you one today. But it was something about, like, you had to pour on the pepper, like it was mountains, and then pour on the salt like it was snow on top of the mountains or something.
Oh, no.
When they were seasoning the sausage.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting. What are some of your other favorite memories of your Grandma Schmidt? Things you did together, or...
Yes, getting together. And one thing, the fellas always ate first, and then the kids got to eat. And then the women would eat. I remember how they always did that. I thought it was strange. Nowadays, we feed the kids first.
That's right. So the women would eat after the
yes.
men and after the children.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. But the women never seemed to chafe at that?
They seemed okay. I think a lot of the times they could do some of the dishes before they ate.
I see. When you talk about, the women being over there, what other women would be over there at the Schmidt house besides your grandma?
Would be the daughter-in-laws and the grandchildren, and some of the Schaefer kids. They were older. They were quite a bit older than some of us.
What are some of your favorite meals or dishes that you used to have at Grandma Schmidt's house?
roast beef, mashed potatoes, and they always had sweet corn in the summer, of course, tomatoes, and her pie, her cooking. Because my mom didn't do a lot of cooking, baking, but her baking was the most. And she couldn't get around very good. She always walked with shoving a chair around the kitchen.
Why was that again?
What?
Why was that again, that she couldn't walk very good?
Well, somebody said she hurt her legs one time, and that's what happened.
Was it something about like a carriage crash, or?
Yeah, something. Mm-hmm.
A carriage tipped over.
And had her both legs broken.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, did she ever express like she was in pain, or like how did she?
No,
cope
she never did act like she was in pain. No, she never did.
She was always just kind of stiff and
Mm-hmm.
kind of hard for her to get around.
Yes, she couldn't walk without those chairs, or when she left, she used a cane.
How did she do all the chores in the house and on the farm that a farm wife would have to do? In those
And then
days?
they raised chickens too.
Wow. Huh. What kind of, besides chickens, what kinds of animals did they raise at the Schmidt farm?
The pigs and cattle, cows, calves.
Do you remember any things that your grandma and grandpa Schmidt ever used to talk about, or do you remember how they talked? Did they speak with a German accent? Or?
Well, I didn't think they had a German accent, and they always talked English. They never talked German, other than Grandma one time. She sang a little. She used to sing to us, and then we did. But the one song I remember was "Little drops of water, little grains of sand, make the mighty ocean and the beauty of the land." That's one thing she did.
And she would sing that in German?
Yes.
Do you remember the German version?
No, I don't.
Wow. So would she sing it in German and then she would tell you what it meant in English?
Yes, she did. Mm-hmm.
And I think I remember you told me at one point she taught you how to count in German?
About what?
That your Grandma Schmidt taught you kids how to count in German?
Yes. I'd go to 5 eins, 3, 1, Spiel, 4. That's the 5.
Typically, how many other grandkids would there be over at the Schmidt house when you were there? And what kinds of things would you do with your cousins?
Oh, there would be a lot. The house was full. I suppose there could be as high as 20 grandchildren, because there was 5 of us, and as the Schaefers came, they really had a lot. Well, Aunt Annie had 7. So.
What kinds of things would you do when you would have big family get-togethers at grandparents' house?
The kids usually played outside, different games, and the guys would sit around and visit. But I can't remember playing games there, other than us kids outside.
Just kind of kids running around being kids.
Yeah, right.
Would you ever help your grandparents with any chores around the farm?
I didn't work outside, but I'd help Grandma with the dishes inside.
I imagine there must have been just a ton of dishes with all those people over there.
Yes, there was. There was a big crowd. Of course, Grandma did have a big kitchen. Her kitchen was big, but all she had in the kitchen was a stove, table, and chairs.
Was it pretty typical of farmhouses in that era that
they always
have big kitchens?
See, they had a pantry, and that's where they kept all their dishes. The only thing, I said, she had that little hutch in the corner where she had her goodies, but that was all that was in the kitchen.
You told me once something that you and your cousins used to say about the hutch. Do you remember what that was?
No, I don't.
I think you said that you and your cousins would call it opening the gates of heaven.
Oh, yes. Because it was, she She had the best stuff in there.
Yeah. She was a good cook, huh? Were her meals that she cooked, did they seem particularly German, or were they just basically American food that we would
Basically American. She had a lot of sauerkraut, which was kind of German. But other than that, it was basically American food.
Yeah. Well, maybe American food today is what Germans would have considered German food 100 years
Could
ago.
be. She made potato pancakes, and that was a lot of work because you had to grate those potatoes.
Well, how would your grandma Schmidt, how would she go about, like if you had to walk me through like a recipe, how would she go about making potato pancakes?
How she would what?
Can you kind of walk me through how your grandma Schmidt would make potato pancakes?
She would peel the potatoes and she would grate them, and then she would add the flour and egg to them and just fry them like a pancake. But she had a small grater and she had to do each one by hand. And everybody liked them, so it took a lot.
But how many potato pancakes would she make for one meal?
Oh, probably 20, depending on how many was there.
Wow. Now, you had shared with me some recipes that were from your mom and from your grandma Schmidt. I think that they had been included in a West Bend community recipe book.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A couple of the recipes that came from your grandma Schmidt, I think one was called like dandelion tonic, and another was called like dandelion wine. Mm-hmm. Do you remember those? What were those about?
No, I don't remember those at all.
I was going to say, those sounded really interesting. I've never heard of dandelion tonic.
No.
Do you remember any foods or drinks or things that your grandma Schmidt would make that you thought were kind of strange or kind of foreign?
Oh, no, she's not that I can think of right now. Let's see, what did she? She used to take dandelion leaves and make salads out of them.
Really? So, how would she get the dandelions? Would she just go out to the yard and pick them?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Huh. And that must have been pretty hard for her if she was using a cane.
Yeah, she managed pretty well for her condition.
Yeah, she must have. Wow. She seems like a pretty tough lady.
She was. And to think that Grandpa and her were born in the same town in Germany, I think that was amazing.
Did your grandma Schmidt or did any of your parents or uncles or aunt ever talk about how your grandma Schmidt was orphaned when she was a young girl and had to move to a bigger city?
I didn't realize that she was orphaned so young.
Yeah, I think her dad died when she was about 4 weeks old. Mm-hmm. And then her mom died when she was about 4 years old.
Yes.
And so she had to move away from that little village, Maklos, and she went to live with an uncle of hers in a bigger city called Essen.
Yes.
But she never really talked much about...
No, she really didn't. And I guess us kids never thought to ask her. We just assumed she was from America, and although we knew she was our German grandma.
Yeah. Did your grandma Schmidt home make all of the food, or did she ever go into town and buy some food from...
They came to town, yeah. She'd buy flour and sugar, but no, the rest was mostly homemade.
Did they ever go to any restaurants?
No, that was unheard of. Other than Uncle Ed, he'd go to the tavern.
Yeah, I heard the stories about him. Yeah.
And us kids used to, we always drove a new car. He never got married, so he could afford a new car. His brothers and sisters couldn't. But anyway, he'd go at the tavern, and us kids would know it was his car. So we'd go sit in that new car, because We thought that was really neat, sitting in a brand new car that was our uncle's. And when he was sick, I don't know if I ever told you, when he was sick, he told Lois Krug to tell us kids he was at Aunt Annie's, she was taking care of him, and he told us kids to all come down after school. He wanted to see us, and he gave us all money to go uptown and buy some clothes. And the girls got dresses and the boys got shirts, and we wore them at his funeral, which he died just a few days later. I always thought that was something. Of course, back then, Jensen's had clothing, and there wasn't such a big array, but he did that.
Can you tell me about the clothing that you got with the money from your uncle?
Yeah, I remember it was, the skirt was purple and the top had flowers, and he really thought it was pretty. We had to come and show him what each one of us bought.
What did he say when he saw yours?
He said that Rosabelle's is the prettiest. I don't know.
Must have made you feel good.
Yeah, it made me feel good, but I wondered what the rest of the kids thought.
Yeah.
But,
so your grandma and grandpa Schmidt, they probably never talked about Germany or talked about...
No, they really didn't talk. I suppose we didn't ask either.
Yeah. And, since you were born after World War I, was there maybe a little feeling like, oh, we're American now, we don't talk about Germany?
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to be a German family in between the world wars?
Well, I guess people just accepted it. I never thought much about, even though I was German and the Germans were fighting, I never give it much thought.
It probably helped that West Bend was such a German town.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did your grandma or grandpa Schmidt or any of your uncles or aunts, did they ever express any opinions, like political opinions or opinions about war?
No, not really. No, they really didn't. Not that I know of. So, I remember your Uncle Bill, Dad's brother Bill. One night, always came to town on Saturday nights. And anyhow, your grandpa seen me on the street, and that's when Joe Louis was fighting, boxing. And he says to me, "What is your dad doing tonight?" I said, "Oh, he's got the radio on. He's listening to that fight." And he says to me, "No, he isn't." I said, "Yes, he is." "No, he isn't, because he took one swing and knocked the guy out, and it was over with." And your grandma, Aunt Annie, she always had some coins in her handkerchief. She'd always give me a nickel to go for an ice cream cone. She always did that.
That must have been pretty generous back in those days.
It was generous.
Giving out nickels here and there to all the nieces and nephews. What kinds of things would you buy with your nickel?
With my nickel, I would buy an ice cream cone.
Where would you buy the ice cream cone from?
At Emerson's penny store, it was called.
Oh, okay. Where about in the business district in West Bend, where is that Emerson's now, or where would it be?
All right, you know where the old white bank building is? All right, it was right next door to the... Mm-hmm.
What other kinds of things would they sell at Emerson's?
It was just an array of all kinds of penny candy. Let's see, licorice and jawbreakers, as they called them back then.
Everything that a kid would love.
Yes, my brother and I, Mom would give us 21 cents to go uptown and buy 2 loaves of bread. You had to give the penny was tax. So what we would do, he would go in one store and buy a loaf of bread. I'd go in the other store and buy a loaf, and then we'd have the penny to spend.
Oh, because then you wouldn't have to pay tax?
Yeah, right. So then we could go to the candy store and buy a penny's worth of candy.
That's smart.
Yeah, but my sister always said we're the ones that broke the government. All those pennies we gypped them out of.
That is too funny. Wow. That is, I don't know if that would be considered like some smart German frugality, or if that was just kids being smart.
Yes.
Do you remember, did your grandma and grandpa Schmidt, did they have certain relatives who would come and visit them frequently, or good friends?
Yes. I never knew for a long time, but the Lindemans down at Humboldt, I knew somehow we related to them. They would get together maybe once a year or twice a year. Of course, you didn't travel much back then, and Humboldt was a ways to go. And now it would be nothing.
Yeah, now you drive there and back in 2 hours. Yeah. Do you ever recall your grandma and grandpa visiting with relatives from Dysart, like the Hotzels or the Heckroths?
Yes, I do remember them, but I didn't know where they fit in.
Yeah, they were from, so your grandpa Schmidt's aunt's family on the Lindemann side. So I think her name was Mary Hotzel. She used to be Mary Lindemann, and she married, I think, an Adam Hotzel, and their kids were Hotzels and Heckroths. When I've been doing research, I keep finding little blurbs in the West Bend Journal newspapers about, the Heckroths came up today to visit the Chaz.
Yes.
Speaking of Chaz Schmidt, do you recall your uncles and aunts and parents, would they ever refer to your grandpa as Karl, or did they refer to him as Charles or Charlie or Chaz?
Well, I remember as a kid growing up, my dad was Charles, and we would get mail. Now, and I always thought Grandpa's name was also Charles, because every once in a while we'd get mail, and Dad would say, "That isn't mine, that belongs to the old man." So. Yeah.
It's kind of funny, because on his tombstone, your grandpa's tombstone, of course, it says Karl, but in the newspapers, every mention of your grandpa
was Charles.
Charles, yeah, or Charlie, or I think sometimes Chaz, which was just an abbreviation of Charles. Do you recall people when they referred to your grandma Schmidt, if they called her Anna or if they called her Maggie?
Maggie, quite a bit.
And again, you might not be able to recall because your grandpa passed when you were so young, but how would your grandpa address your grandma?
He was kind of a rough old guy. I don't know that, or I thought he was as a kid. He called her Maggie.
He didn't have any pet names for her?
Not that I ever knew of.
Not a gruff old farmer like that?
No.
Can you remember who your grandma and grandpa Schmidt's neighbors were?
Who their neighbors were? Well, McCormick's lived down the road a ways. And other than that, I can't think of anybody.
I know your dad was friends with Walter McCormick. Were your grandma and grandpa Schmidt, were they friends with McCormick's also?
Now that I don't recall that they were, but they could have been because they were neighbors.
Yeah, these days a lot of our neighbors, we don't even know who they are.
What's that?
Half of my neighbors today, I actually don't know their names even.
No.
It's just a different age. You had told me a story one time about your sister hanging up a dress, and there was.
Oh yes,
on the farm. Can you tell
that's when Uncle Ed and Grandma lived at Algona. My sisters would take turns going to help. My sister wore her dress, and Lil did. Hung it on the line, and the goat come along and ate the hem off her dress.
She probably wasn't too happy.
No, she wasn't, because you didn't have too many dresses back then.
Speaking of dresses, what kind of dresses would your Grandma Schmidt wear?
They were long and regular house dresses made out of regular material. They were long.
How did your Grandma Schmidt get her dresses?
Well, I think she probably sewed them.
She sewed her own?
I think so. Because the only shopping you did was at what was in West Bend. You didn't go other places back then.
Yeah. Do you remember if your grandma, just had a couple dresses that she would wear, or if she had a bunch of different dresses that she wore?
I would say she probably had a total of 5, I would say. And quite often she'd wear stuff out by hand.
How would that work? The only thing I've ever known is just putting stuff in a washing machine and throwing some detergent in. How would she wash her clothes by hand back in those days?
She'd put them in a dishpan with a little oxidol back then. That was the way she did it. They had a screened-in porch, and she hung them there a lot.
And that was at the West Bend house or the Algona house?
The West Bend house. The one that's in that picture of... You got that picture. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. With
Red and Dick.
Uncle William and Anna. And
yeah, there's about...
Karl and Maggie.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably remember that the front of that house really well.
Yes.
Did your grandma, did she have like a garden in front of the house?
No, she had a garden, but it was a ways from the house.
Do you remember whether or not your grandma and grandpa Schmidt had any old photographs or pictures hanging around their house?
They did.
Can you, I know you probably wouldn't necessarily know who the photographs were of, but would you be able to tell me a little bit about what the photographs looked like that they had hanging up?
Well, they were always in brown, and they were not real clear. So
they had kind of these sepia portraits hanging up.
Yeah, they did. Mm-hmm. They didn't decorate back then like we do nowadays.
Would you like to take a break?
No, I'm all right.
Oh, okay. Do you remember, your grandparents or your folks or uncles and aunts ever talking about those pictures that they had hanging up and saying, that's so-and-so or that's...
They probably did, but I didn't know who they were.
Yeah. Most of those photographs, they're probably just kind of dispersed amongst the kids.
Yeah.
When the grandparents died.
I suppose that's what happened to them.
You had told me a story once about what your grandma and grandpa Schmidt did when your dad came home from...
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me that story?
Well, okay. When he got out, he just came back on the train to West Bend. Well, they lived about a mile and a half out of town, and Dad wanted to walk home and surprise him. Well, he did, but he seen some woman in West Bend, and she knew he was just getting home, and she called out to his parents and told him he was on his way home. And he was so mad he wanted to walk in and surprise him. But when he come down the road, the brothers and sisters were out in the yard on the windmill waving at him. He was so surprised that they knew that he was coming home.
So he wanted to come home and have a big
Just
surprise.
walk in on him.
So what did they say to him when he came home all upset that he couldn't surprise them?
What's that?
When he came home, and he was upset that he didn't get to surprise them, what did the family say to him?
They just told him who called. And he, for a long time, he was so mad at that woman because he wanted to walk in without them knowing that he was coming home.
Yeah. He wanted to, they wanted to give him the royal treatment.
Yes, they did. Mm-hmm.
Did your dad ever talk about, I know he was serving actively just for a brief time, but did your dad ever talk about serving in the military during the First World War?
No, all he ever talked about was Camp Pike, Arkansas. He was there, and he was to go overseas, but the war ended, so he didn't have to.
Did he feel relieved about that? Or
I think he did, probably.
There was no disappointment or anything?
No.
Do you remember, how did your Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt, how did they generally interact with your folks and with the uncles and aunts?
Mostly by having family dinners and visiting. We didn't have much entertainment. Just sit around and visit.
What kinds of things, and again, you probably might not remember because you were a little kid at the time, but what kinds of things would the uncles and the aunts and the grandparents, would they talk about?
Mostly farming and what they've been doing.
And that was probably of no interest to you.
Pardon?
That was probably of no interest to you.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And you don't recall any particular reaction to World War II when you were a little kid, and of course your grandparents being Germans? Did they seem particularly, opinionated about whether your dad or whether your uncles and aunts should go into the military, or did they ever seem to express anything about World War II?
Not that I can recall.
It was just kind of a far off.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And they just kind of stuck to the farm.
Yeah. They didn't spread their wings very far.
Well, not by that time.
No.
They had when they were young, clearly. Did your grandma and grandpa, did they ever talk about living in Dysart and Vinton?
No, they never did, no. I just assumed they always lived in West Bend which I don't know, which I think they did pretty much.
Yeah, I think they were only in Dysart and Vinton for maybe a few years.
Yes, mm-hmm.
Do you ever recall them talking about or writing letters to relatives who were still in Germany?
Yes, Grandma Schmidt would get letters occasionally from somebody in Germany that she knew. Mm-hmm.
Do you know if they were a friend or a cousin or
relatives? I think, because she wasn't very old when she came to America.
Yeah, only 17 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking back on when your Grandma Schmidt would get these letters from Germany, what would she do when she got the letters?
What
would she do when she got the letters?
She would just sit and read them, and sometimes tears would come to her eyes.
But being the quiet woman she was, she never said much about what was in
No, she didn't, huh?
That's fascinating.
They did a lot of their own butchering.
Oh, did they? Can you tell me about that?
And they'd have a big, kettle, I want to call it, that they fired underneath, and they'd make sausage. How they did it, I don't know, and they'd make little rings of bologna. They did that a lot.
And those were pretty good?
That was good.
How would they eat their sausage or their bologna? Would they have any sauce with it, or would they just eat it straight?
They eat it straight most of the time, just slice it and put it on the table with a lot of fried potatoes.
Of course. And sauerkraut.
Right.
My grandpa Roger Schmidt, he remembers going with his grandpa, William. They would go out fishing, sometimes at Five Island Lake here.
Oh, yeah.
And he says that his grandpa, your Uncle William, would always have a ring of bologna with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd have a jackknife with him, and he'd just kind of slice off slices of the bologna as he was fishing. And one day, my grandpa Roger kind of looked at the knife and said, "Oh my gosh, I think that's the same knife that he uses to castrate the hogs." So he didn't have any more bologna after that. Going back to your Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt's house, do you remember any particular scents or smells, what it would smell like in their house?
It would smell like meat, really, it would. And I suppose it was that sausage that did it.
Yeah. I remember folks have always told me that Red and Dick's Schmidt's house always smelled like hot dogs. Like
oh, yes. I remember them a lot, Red and Dick.
They were always boiling hot dogs, I hear.
Yes. They always said that they'd come in the house at 5 minutes to 12, eat dinner, do the dishes, and be back out at 5 after 12. They always made that joke.
Wow, yeah. And I heard that they kept kind of a messy house.
Yeah, they did. But when Aunt Annie was living, I remember they had that organ. And oh, how us kids loved to play that organ.
You know that that's still operating, don't you?
Oh, it is.
Yeah. It's actually at the house where my parents live, Bill and Lula's old house.
Oh, yeah.
My dad had found it in a garage, and it was kind of deteriorating and dilapidating. This was back in the 1990s. And so he actually restored the organ, and it's now working.
So it was in a garage?
Yeah, it was in a garage across the street from Lula's house.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm not sure exactly the specifics of how my dad found out about it, or found out that it was there, but yeah, he found out that it was sitting in the garage, and so he took it out of there and worked on it and restored it, and looks beautiful now. And
I bet it does.
Perfect working order.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to come see it.
Yes.
You probably still play it too, I bet, right?
No, we just would play. But Lula or Aunt Annie would never say anything. She just let us play it.
She must have been a pretty sweet aunt.
Aunt Annie was sweet. Yes, she was.
Did your Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt, did they have any pets on the farm?
Any pets? Mm-hmm. They had dogs and cats.
Did those dogs and cats have any names, or were they just kind of...
They probably did have a name, I don't remember, but they did have dogs and cats.
And they would just kind of hang around the farm?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Would your Grandma and Grandpa put food or water out for them, or did
they
just do it for themselves? Yeah,
they would. They'd put food out.
What would they usually give the dogs and cats to eat?
Table scraps.
After they were done with the meal?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or after the women were done with their
meal? Right.
Because the women apparently got the table scraps after the men and the kids.
Yeah, right.
What was a typical meal like, I guess from your perspective at the kids' table? How would you eat a meal back in those days? Was there kind of platters in the middle that everybody would take stuff off?
Yes.
Would everybody have their own plate? Or
everybody had their own plate. Mm-hmm.
And how about, did you ever see when the men would eat, how they went about having a meal?
How the men did? Mm-hmm. Well, they ate first, but there was always plenty of food.
Was it kind of set up like almost like a buffet line where they would go through?
No, they would sit down. They would sit down to the table and pass the food.
And they just pass dishes around and people would take.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I heard something about my Grandpa William Schmidt, your uncle, that he wouldn't eat anything unless it were unless it was passed directly to him or unless it was sitting right in front of him.
Oh.
If bread was the only thing that was sitting in front of him, then
Oh,
bread would be
really?
the only thing he would eat.
I didn't know that.
I can't remember who I heard that from. Maybe my grandpa Roger. But apparently, he had a funny habit that he would just only eat whatever was right in front of him. If something was way down the table, he wouldn't ask for it. He would just keep on eating whatever it was that was right there. Did your grandma and grandpa Schmidt, did they have any relatives or anybody else who lived with them, like permanently or regularly?
Well, just Clarence Krug did for a while, till he grew up. They kind of raised him. He was born out of wedlock.
And what was Clarence Krug's relation to you?
To who?
To you.
Be a cousin. Lois's brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. John and Annie's
Yeah.
child.
Margaret Ann and Mary.
Yeah. Do you remember much about your cousin Clarence and,
Yeah, I know he was in the same class my sister Lil was. No, I can't really remember a lot about him.
Your cousin Lois told me once that when she would be mopping the
Yeah.
house or, mopping the grandparents' house, Clarence would always come in and he'd skate across the mopped floor. She'd have to chase him out of the kitchen.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
She hated it because he would just skate right on in there and mess up her floor after she mopped it. Did you ever hear any stories, maybe not from your grandparents, but from your folks or your aunts or your uncles about how your grandma and grandpa Schmidt met and how they got married?
No, I don't know how they met.
Just one of those things they didn't really talk about too much.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little more? I know that you had mentioned earlier that your grandpa was just kind of a quiet, strict, stern sort of fellow. But can you tell me a little bit more about your memories of how your grandpa Schmidt interacted with your grandma Schmidt?
No, I really don't know. I just assumed they got along.
But he was
No, he was a tough, kind of a stern German.
Yeah. Did you ever see any signs of affection between them? Would he kiss her on the cheek or give her a hug or anything?
No, I can't remember that he ever did.
It probably just wasn't something that people did a whole lot.
No, they didn't.
Yeah. Did you ever receive any gifts from your grandma or your grandpa?
Oh, yes, we did at Christmas time. The boys all got socks. The fellas got socks. And the women got a bowl. And all us grandkids, we got pencils.
Now you said that your grandma and grandpa Schmidt would give the women a bowl for Christmas. Mm-hmm. What kind of bowl was it?
Like a regular table bowl that you'd put like potatoes in or a vegetable, medium-sized bowl.
Was it like ceramic or wood? Or?
No, it wasn't ceramic. It was, well, I know when they got old they would crack. I don't know, some kind of, I don't know really what they were made out of.
Were these things that your grandma and grandpa would hand make?
Would they what?
Would they hand make these bowls and pencils?
No, they bought them.
Probably from one of the few stores in West Bend.
Jensen and Bolstead. In fact, I have a bowl that they gave out.
Wow.
I was at a, what do I want to say? Up at the lakes, they had those antique shows. And I was there, and there I seen this bowl that said Jensen and Bolstead. So I had to have it because I spent a lot of time in that store.
Wow. What a find.
Yeah, it was.
How did the kids feel about getting a pencil for Christmas? Was that a pretty standard gift?
Yeah, we were happy.
Was it just kind of a basic, like a number 2 pencil? Or?
Yeah, just a number 2 pencil, just a regular pencil.
Would you, use it to doodle, or would you use it for school, or?
Use it at school.
What kind of gifts would your grandma and grandpa Schmidt give you for other holidays, like maybe a birthday?
Well, there was nothing. We never got birthday presents.
You never got birthday presents from anybody at all?
Very few, very little, yes.
About when was it, do you think, that birthdays really became an occasion for gift giving?
Mm-hmm. Probably when I was about 18, 20.
That be in the 50s or 60s?
Well, I was born about, I'd be about 47.
47, yeah, that's right.
Or a little earlier, maybe.
Maybe it was, once everybody came out of the Depression and World War II,
yes.
There was more stuff to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me about how your grandma and grandpa Schmidt practiced their religion?
Well, they went to the Apostolic Church. That's where Grandpa's funeral was. But when Grandma died, hers was at the Methodist. And I don't think they went to church regularly.
But technically, by the time that you knew them, they were members of the Apostolic Church.
Well, Grandpa was. I don't know how that came about.
I think his cousins, like Henry Schmidt, who lived east of West Bend, he married Mary Mosier, and those kids, I think a lot of those guys had converted to the Apostolic Church.
Yeah.
Maybe he was tagging along with his cousins.
But I remember his funeral was held there.
Can you tell me your memories of your Grandpa Schmidt's funeral?
Kind of short and stocky, yeah, and a mustache.
Did you, was there kind of a wake where you went up to the casket?
No, they had the wake at the house.
Oh, I see. What were wakes in the home like back in those days?
They just brought the body in the casket and set it there. People stayed there with the body all the time till the next morning when they'd have the funeral.
Were there a lot of people who would come by the house for the wake?
Yes, there was. It was. Mm-hmm.
You were there for your grandpa's wake at the house?
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me anything that you remember about the wake? Any people that you remember coming by, or any foods that they had set out, or anything like that?
No, that I don't remember.
And how about the funeral? Do you have any memories of what the funeral was like?
Well, if I remember right, the women all sat in one area, the church, the men on the other, and us kids in another area. Now that I seem to remember.
That was kind of unusual to you as a kid.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What church did you and your folks go to?
Presbyterian.
What were the services of the Presbyterian church like?
Very much like what the Methodists had. Very much.
Do you recall your folks or anybody in town talking about the Apostolic Church and what people thought about the Apostolic Church in West Bend?
No, I don't recall that they did make. They just say they're coffee dutchers. But no.
Why did folks call apostolic people coffee dutchers?
Because they stayed and had coffee.
And they were Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall if your grandma or grandpa Schmidt, were they ever members or involved in any sort of organization or associations?
Well, Dad and Mom were Legion. very much involved in the Legion.
Would your Grandma Schmidt, would she have ever been like in the auxiliary or?
What?
Would your Grandma Schmidt have ever been in like the Legion auxiliary?
No, Grandma Schmidt never did, no. It didn't start that then.
Yeah, I wasn't sure when that began. Or your Grandpa Schmidt, I know that your Grandpa Schmidt, and this was before you were born, but he served, I think, on the school board or kind of like a county school commission or something.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, with his cousin Henry Eisler. Did you ever know the Eislers?
No, I knew the name, but I didn't really know him.
Okay. The Eislers, their mother was a Lindemann, another Lindemann connection.
Oh, yeah.
But did you ever hear about your Grandpa Schmidt belonging to any like German fraternal organizations? Or
no, I don't.
Did anybody in your family ever talk about some of the other Schmidts that had settled in America? Like your grandpa had a couple of uncles who lived out in Washington, D.C.?
No, they didn't, not that I recall.
Just mainly the Humboldt and the Dysart relatives?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did anybody ever refer to your Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt by particular names or nicknames?
Did they what?
Did your Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt, did they ever have any nicknames with anybody?
Nicknames? No, I don't think so.
They just called them Charlie and Maggie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that I think was kind of interesting about when your Grandpa Schmidt came over, he came over in June of 1881,
Mm-hmm.
and in July of 1881, just 1 month after your Grandpa Schmidt got to America, President Garfield was assassinated. Did he ever talk about what it
No,
was like
they never did talk about that.
come over and 1 month into his stay here already the president's been assassinated? Did your Grandma and Grandpa, did they ever talk about their experiences with other major events? Like, you know, how Germany was unified as a country when they were
No,
kids?
they never did.
The Franco-Prussian War?
No.
Did your grandparents or uncles and aunts, did they ever talk about what the Great Depression was like, or World War I, or any of those big events?
Well, no, the Depression was bad. People had no money.
What do you remember about growing up in the Depression?
Well, things were cheap, but you didn't, even though they weren't expensive, you still didn't have the money. And we just had a stove and a table and chairs in the kitchen and a cupboard. That was it for furniture.
Did you ever experience hunger? Did you ever go hungry at any time?
No, we always had something to eat.
Probably had a
It wasn't steak, but we had food.
And your Grandma Schmidt, did she do a lot of canning?
Yes, she did. They canned meat. Put it in jars and would can meat.
What kind of meat would they can?
Beef.
From the cows that they slaughtered on the
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What would they do with the canned beef? I mean, how long would it stay in the can? And then once they took it out of the can, what would they do with it?
It was already cooked, so all you had to do was put it in a pan and heat it up.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. There was always lard on top of it.
What kinds of dishes would they make with the canned beef?
Usually just plain beef.
Oh, they would just heat it up and eat it?
Yeah, there wasn't much for casseroles. It was meat, potatoes, and gravy.
Do you remember Thinking back on your memories of your grandma and maybe of your Grandpa Schmidt, do you remember when you saw them the happiest that they ever were?
No, I don't.
Or any time that made them they seemed especially upbeat or especially...
No, I don't.
You mentioned, when your Grandma Schmidt would get a letter from a relative in Germany, sometimes she'd get kind of teary. Do you recall when your Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt were at their most upset? Did you ever see them particularly upset?
No, I didn't. No, not that I noticed.
They didn't really wear their emotions
No,
outwardly a lot.
no.
They just kind of kept it in. Did you ever see them get angry about anything? Or?
No, although Grandpa was a stern old fella.
But he never really lost his temper?
No, not really.
Did your dad ever say anything to you or have any stories about what it was like to grow up as the son of your grandma and grandpa?
No, he didn't.
Your grandparents probably didn't have a whole lot of free time, but if they did have any free time, what kinds of things would they do, or did they ever do anything for fun?
I don't think so. Just mostly maybe read the paper and that'd be about it. They didn't even have radios then.
So it'd mainly be reading paper or just getting together with folks and chatting?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back on your Grandpa Schmidt, he had kind of a colon cancer towards the end of his life.
So I don't remember, I don't know anything about that other than I wasn't all that old.
You don't remember seeing him sick?
No, I don't.
Do you have any memories of when your grandpa died?
I remember the funeral at the Apostolic, but other than that, I don't.
How about your grandma? Do you remember, I think she had kind of like a bronchitis towards the end of her life?
I remember going down to Aunt Annie's, and Grandma would be there in bed. But I didn't realize she was that sick.
Did she kind of seem to take a turn for the worse after your Uncle Ed died?
I think so.
When you would go down to your Aunt Annie Krug's to visit, and Ed and your grandma were sick, what was it like around the house when they were both that sick?
Well, Aunt Annie, I don't know how she handled it with the kids she had at home, because her kids were young too. So she had one upstairs and one downstairs.
The sick relatives?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who was upstairs and who was downstairs?
Uncle Ed was upstairs.
And your Grandma Schmidt was?
Downstairs.
Would you have to, or maybe not you, but would Annie or one of your Krug cousins, would they have to take meals into Ed and Maggie?
Yeah, they did.
Do you remember, do you have any memories of that?
No, I don't.
How about, you told me a little bit about your Grandpa Schmidt's wake and funeral. Do you remember what it was like when your Grandma Schmidt passed away?
No, they didn't wake him at the house anymore back then. She was at the funeral home. It was at the Methodist church, that's all I remember.
How did the family take it when Grandma Schmidt passed away?
They were sad. I remember my dad felt real bad.
Why's that?
Because he thought a lot of his mother.
Well, are there any other memories that you have of your Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt that I haven't asked you about, but you'd like to share?
No, I don't.
It's a long time ago, and I know you're a young girl when your grandpa died, so
Yeah, I was.
it's hard to remember much when you're about, 5 years old? Well, should we take a little breather here?
Okay.
Okay. Well, this morning we kind of talked about your Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt and what you remembered of them. I was hoping maybe you could tell me some of your fondest memories of your folks and of your uncles and aunts on the Schmidt side.
Well, we were close, and we were back and forth a lot with all of them, except Mike and Marie. They weren't there a lot of times, but we all lived around West Bend, and we seen each other a lot.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just start from the oldest one. What in particular do you remember about your uncle and aunt Will and Ann?
Well, we seen a lot of Aunt Annie and Uncle Bill. They were really nice people. Aunt Annie was just a sweet lady, always so giving. Even if she didn't have much, she shared what she had.
What kind of personality did your Uncle Bill have?
He had a good personality. He was kind of like my dad. He was kind of a joker. Dad and him was joking a lot.
They kind of played off each other?
They what?
They kind of played off each other?
Yes, they did.
Told the same sort of jokes. And what did your Aunt Annie or what did your mom think about some of those jokes?
Mom was more sober-like. But she'd say, Charlie, is that anything to say? Well, that didn't hurt him any.
How about your Aunt Annie? Would she react to that at all or just kind of ignore it?
Who do you mean?
Annie Schmidt.
Okay. Oh, no, she didn't. She just was kind of quiet and would listen.
Maybe listen and shake her head.
Mm-hmm.
How about your Aunt Lizzie? And I don't know if you had a whole lot of memories of your Uncle Gottlieb on the Schaefer side.
Yes, I do.
What do you most remember about?
Because they moved in the house that my mom and dad lived in at one time. Okay. In fact, they bought it. And they used to come to Lutheran church. They had so many kids they'd have to go home, come back twice to get them all. And they would stop at our house a lot on Sunday morning and sometimes drop off one load while they went after the other ones.
Did they have an automobile or?
Yeah, they had some kind of an old car, yeah.
How about your Uncle Ed? I bet you probably have a lot of memories of him.
Yeah, probably. He always came to town, though, and would have his beer. I don't know if he drank German beer or what it was, but he always had beer.
Did he have anybody who he was particularly buddies with or people he drank beer with often?
Just whoever he played cards with at the pool.
At like the swimming pool?
What?
You said at the pool?
At the pool hall.
Oh, at the pool hall. Oh, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what the name of the pool hall was?
Forsyth.
Forsyth's. Okay.
It was right on the corner of the square in West Bend. It was right on the corner.
Did I can't remember if this happened before or after you were born, but did you ever hear the story about how Ed crashed one of his cars into a storefront in West Bend?
You know, I'd forgotten about that. Yes, he did.
Something about he thought he had it in drive, but he actually had it in reverse, and he went up over the curve and busted through the glass storefront.
Yes.
Did people kid him about that? Did they give him a hard time about that? Or?
That I don't remember.
But it was something that you had heard when you were a kid about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But how many cars do you think your Uncle Ed went through?
Well, he usually got one every other year.
Wow. Huh. What kinds of cars would he get?
Ford. Always Ford.
Did he ever say why?
No. Because I suppose it was a Ford dealer in West Bend.
That would make sense.
Which was Montag.
Oh, okay. Now, Ed never married. Do you remember him ever having a girlfriend? Or
No, I don't.
He was never engaged? Or
No.
How about your mom and dad? What was it like to grow up as their daughter?
As what?
What was it like to grow up as their daughter, your mom and dad's daughter?
Well, I really favored my dad more than my mother. Dad seemed more caring than Mom did a lot. And us kids would have probably had more if he'd have had, if she'd have let Dad have his way.
What were some of the ways that your dad seemed particularly caring?
What was this?
What were some of the ways that your dad seemed more caring?
Well, it was that he'd want to buy us things, and Mom didn't think we needed it, and maybe we didn't.
What kinds of things?
Like clothes or something, a toy or something.
So your dad was pretty generous with his money.
Yeah, he was more generous than Mom.
What kinds of ways did your mom show her affection for you kids?
Well, she did take good care of us, and she did a lot of sewing.
Yeah, how many quilts did she sew?
I don't know, I'd hate to guess. I can't imagine how many she sewed. And she'd sit there at night, and Dad would pick out the pattern to put together, because he didn't like sometimes the colors she had put together. He'd say, "Ma, that ain't the right color." Well, then you do it. So he'd put a different color with it.
They kind of had a kind of an opposites attract sort of relationship.
Yes.
What other interesting or funny or even sweet ways would your mom interact with your dad?
I can't think of any.
Did you ever see him squabble or bicker?
Oh, yeah. Dad would want to buy something, and Mom didn't think we'd need it. He'd always say, "Ma, you're nothing but a damn tight German." And he was as German as she was.
That's right, yeah. How would your dad show his affection for your mom?
Dad, he would bring home things for her. Maybe it wasn't much, but he'd come with something. He'd always remember her birthday.
What kinds of gifts would your dad bring your mom?
I remember one time he brought her home a vase with some roses in it. And he'd buy her a dress.
A little bit more expensive than a pencil.
Yes.
Did you ever get in trouble when you were a little kid?
Not too much, because we knew we'd get scolded for it. No, I can't say we did.
And of course, you were probably the most well-behaved of all the kids.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Did any of your brothers or sisters ever get in trouble for anything?
No, not really.
What would have happened if you had done something wrong?
I don't know.
You just knew that you better
No,
not.
Mom used to say, "Get in trouble, just figure your own way out."
Who were your mom and dad's closest friends?
Golly, I can't remember that they really had any close friends.
Did your mom, did she spend a lot of time with her siblings or her Krug cousins?
No, because there wasn't. Well, yeah, she did at times, but her Krug cousins, there was 3 or 4 boys, Louis, John, George, and Vern.
What do you remember of Louis George John and Vern?
See, John was Lois's dad. And, well, we were just back and forth a lot. People didn't stray far from home.
What are some of your best memories of your Uncle John and your Aunt Annie Krug?
We were there a lot. I spent a lot of time at their house.
What kind of house did they have?
Well, the house still stands in West Bend. It was so, you know, where they built all those new stations. It's up that way. It stands by itself. That's where they lived. And we had a house down where the station is. And that's where the Schaefers then bought it.
Was it the Champlain station?
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
Ernie and Rob?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you were actually double cousins of your Krug cousins.
Yes.
They were both Schmidts
yes.
and Krugs.
Lois and I always said we were cousins and a half.
So would you say that you're probably closest with your Krug cousins?
Yes, I would. Mm-hmm.
What kinds of things would you guys do when the Schmidts and the Krugs got together?
When we what?
When the Schmidts and the Krugs got together, spend time together?
Play ball.
You play ball?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of ball?
Baseball.
What position did you play in baseball?
Any position they gave me.
What would the adults do when they got together?
Just sit around and visit.
Do you remember what they would talk about or what they would visit about?
No.
How about your memories of your Uncle Henry and your Aunt Belva? Do you remember them pretty well?
Yes, I do. They were good aunts and uncles too. And they would come and see us. And after I was married, Aunt Belva sent us a Christmas card one time, and she wanted to write a little message on it. So she started writing a message, and then she put, "I'm running out of ink, so goodbye." So she ended. I always remembered, I thought that was pretty cute. I thought, oh, Aunt Belva, you could find another pen.
That's funny. Now, she was alive up until, what, 2003?
She what?
She was alive up until 2003, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Her and my mom were close.
Oh, okay. Did her and your mom know each other before they married the Schmidt boys, or did they kind of develop a friendship after they both married?
After they got married.
Oh, okay. What kind of personality did your Uncle Henry have?
He had a good personality. He really did. Yeah, he was funny.
Did he have the same kind of sense of humor that Charlie and Bill had?
Pretty much. I would say he would be the closest one to him.
Do you have any particularly fond memories of your Uncle Henry?
Of who?
Of your Uncle Henry Schmidt.
Yeah, I do.
What can you tell me about things that you remember about your Uncle Henry?
I remember one time Janet and I was downtown. I didn't notice Uncle Henry was sitting in the car there, and we went to go in a shop, and he hollered at us, "Don't go in there, you'll just spend some money." I turned around, and there he was, him.
So going back to your mom and dad, can you tell me a little bit more? You know, we had kind of talked about this over lunch, but tell me a little bit more about what it was like to grow up during the Depression when things were scarce and money was scarce, and what kinds of things that might seem funny today that you and your family had to do to get by back then.
Well, everybody was in the same boat. Everybody was poor. Nobody had hardly anything. The only thing is farmers were luckier because they had their own eggs and their own milk and that, whereas in town we didn't. So.
What was it like going to school as a young girl during the Depression and World War II? Were school supplies also scarce?
Well, we had to buy our own paper and pencils, but the rest was supplied by the school. We had to pay for books, too.
Did you go to school in town?
In town all my life. Started in West Bend and finished there.
What was a typical school day like for you from start to finish?
You just went from one class to another, and you got to school by 9 o'clock.
What were some of your classes that you took that were your favorite?
History, arithmetic, and Latin.
What was lunchtime like during a school day?
Well, all right, we were fortunate. The home ec girls made lunch. They made a hot dish, and if you wanted any sandwich, you brought your own sandwich, and then you had to pay a dime for the hot dish.
Were they good?
Yeah, it was.
They were worth the dime?
Yeah, it was worth a dime.
Did you have physical education when you were in school?
Yeah, we did.
What was your PE class like?
We played mostly basketball.
Was that separate from recess? Did you also get a recess where you just got to play?
No, that was with recess.
Okay, so physical education was basically the same thing as recess. Did you ever take any field trips with your class?
No, I didn't. No, we never went on any field trips.
Never walked down to the grotto or?
Well, I went down there a lot.
With school or just on your own?
What?
Did you go to the grotto like on a trip with your class or just on your own?
No, just on my own.
Yeah. What kinds of things would you do for fun when you got, on school break or when you got home from school?
Probably listen to the radio, but that'd be about it.
Who were some of your close friends when you were a schoolgirl?
Harriet Robinson, and she was a grade below me.
Can you tell me some of your favorite memories about Harriet?
She lost her mother when she was young, so she was glad to get to come home with me. Her dad worked all the time.
Now, when did you meet your husband? Did he go to school with you when you were
No.
a kid? How did you meet John?
Well, I was uptown and he was with a cousin of mine, and so we got to talking that way. That's how I met him.
In West Bend?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember which cousin he was friends with?
I was with Ben.
Oh, Ben
Lois's brother.
Oh, Ben Krug.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to talking and...
Yeah.
Did he ask you on the first date or did you ask him or how did that work?
No, he asked me.
Where was your first date at?
We went... Well, where did we go? I don't remember. I don't remember where we went.
Well, maybe not necessarily first date, but what kinds of places would you and John go on dates at?
He always liked to go to movies, and I never cared for him, so we went to movies a lot.
But you weren't too happy about it?
No.
What kinds of movies did you want to see?
Oh, westerns.
Boy movies, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me the story of how John proposed to you?
He just would say, "I want you for my wife."
That was just something he said often?
Yeah.
Oh. So there was no big dramatic moment?
No.
Got down on one knee?
No.
What was your wedding day like?
We got married on the evening on a Friday night because he had the weekend off.
Oh. So it was a convenient time to have a wedding.
Yeah, right.
What was the actual wedding ceremony like?
It was nothing real fancy. We just met at the church and was married by the Presbyterian minister. and went down to the basement and had cake and coffee.
Do you remember who your groomsmen and bridesmaids were?
My groomsman was Everett, my brother, and the bridesmaid was Harriet Robinson, my friend.
Were they also the witnesses to the wedding?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was it a fairly big attendance at the wedding? Did you get all?
It was just family.
Just immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. What year would that have been when you got married?
1947.
What was it like as a young married couple in the late 40s?
Well, we were more fortunate. We lived in a 3-room apartment in Emmetsburg. We didn't have much. We had a stove in the kitchen, a table and chairs, and a bedroom set.
And now, which was the first kid to come along? Is it Janet?
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide on Janet's name? Who she named
I wanted to name her Joyce, but Johnny already had a niece, Joyce, so we went with Janet.
Just a name that you liked?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
How about Jerry? Is there any special significance to Jerry's name?
No, we didn't even want him.
Oh. This is going to be on video. Right?
Oh, no. I guess we thought, well, being we named her Janet, we'd name him Jerry, because we thought they named her. And then I thought then people would know Janet and Jerry belonged to Johnny.
There you go, the J's.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the experiences that you had as a young mother when you first had Janet?
Oh. I don't really know that we had any.
Was it difficult at all to...
No, it wasn't.
What did your husband do for a living?
He worked at the grocery store.
Oh, that's right.
Produce manager.
Yeah. And when did you start working as a waitress?
Well, I worked before I was married at a waitress at a cafe in West Bend. But then I went to work when Jerry was... I worked nights, and then Johnny was with the kids when Jerry was probably 5 years old. But then I did that off and on. But then I worked at Penny's and Ward's, too.
And just to backtrack a little, what was the name of the cafe in West Bend where you first...
At West Bend, Franklin Hotel. Dr. Givens built that.
I think I saw a painting of it recently in West Bend.
It still stands down from the bank, from the old bank.
What was it like being a waitress back in those days? How much did you get paid?
$0.25 an hour.
Plus tips?
Yeah, but it was very... If you got a dime tip, you thought you did good.
About how much money could a waitress back in those days expect to earn, like, say, over the course of a week?
Probably about $8.
Was that considered pretty good income?
That wasn't too bad.
Well, are there any other memories of your home life or your parents or uncles and aunts that you'd like to share with this video documentary?
No other than I was from a good family. They weren't wealthy, but nobody got in trouble.